And welcome to Nico Bits Live. So today we've got an exciting show, and we're going to be talking about this topic here, which is that Gen Z are the future. So pretty excited about it. Should have an exciting show for you today. So this is Miko Bits Live. Okay, excellent. So just want to introduce my guest today, Connor Riley. So hey, welcome to the Miko Bits Show. Yeah, absolutely. So, we're definitely excited to have a bona fide Gen Z crypto activist on the show. So, please tell us a little bit about yourself and, how did you get into crypto, blockchain, and metaverse? That's amazing. That's really great. So when I ran across you, you were actually kind of doing wage labor, right? So tell me about that. You actually were listening to crypto podcast. Appreciate that. Yeah, absolutely. To me, like it's super important for people to kind of keep an open mind and interface with the next generation. I think to me, like this has been a really interesting journey, right? And in a sense, the thing that's so fascinating is that we're really kind of describing the future of work, right? So in a sense, like you shifted from kind of doing a kind of a stocking job, and in a sense, you're kind of like starting to achieve your own financial independence through kind of crypto blockchain. Is that accurate to say? That's tremendous. I mean, I'm excited to hear you describe this. One of the things that my fund is invested in is Yield Guild, YGG, and they're a guild that plays Axie Infinity, a part of this play to earn movement, right? And one of the things I've been thinking a lot about is this concept of what I call time investors, right? Which is that, they provide scholarships to a virtual world where you can play games and earn money, right? And so the thing that's crazy about time investors is that they only have their time. They don't have money to invest. But because of these new systems, people who just invest their time, all they have is, they're suddenly able to kind of join this metaverse economy, right? So I'm really interested to kind of understand your uh, kind of thoughts around this kind of concept of a time investor, because it feels like you, as a student of finance, really understood deeply this concept of opportunity costs and really understood deeply about like how you could kind of use yourself as a kind of a chess piece, right? How you could kind of like up your game really quickly. Yeah. Oh, I think that's a super potent message, right? So, I mean, I think one of the really astonishing things about, being a younger person is that there's this kind of mood of deferral. There's this mood of kind of like, okay, well, you gotta like do it tomorrow, and so to me, the thing, it's exciting what you're saying, right? Because in a sense, like, if you're not realizing your future, then how do you ever get there, right? So I think you're really aspirational figure from that perspective. So one of the things I've been watching in the news is this kind of Facebook renaming to Meta, right? So you can see my background. I'm playing Ready Player One. We're sitting in the metaverse, right? So I'm curious about like your perceptions about sort of the future and the metaverse, and like how do you see the next 10, 20 years. Yeah, yeah, that's right. That's right. That's a powerful message, and I think it's something that's irreversible, right? Which is that I think that Axie Infinity threw down the gauntlet, right? And the other day I said we're going to stop talking about blockchain games, and we're going to start talking about games that don't give you ownership as you play, right? So, in a sense, like what I talk about is time investors, right, and time wasters. And I'll tell you what a time waster is like if you're spending a lot of time on Facebook, at the end of that process, you ask yourself, okay, who got rich? And you ask yourself, what do I own? Right? And it's like I don't even own the content that I posted on Facebook, let alone any kind of chunk of this company or project. I don't own anything, right? Like, even my own content, I don't own it, right? So it's sort of like, wow, that is harsh, right? And you're just watching Facebook get really $1 trillion rich, right? And so the thing that I think is exciting about the future that you and your brothers are going to grow up in, like, in a way, they're not going to be time wasting. They're going to be like time investing, right? They're going to really be using their time, and the thing that's great about people competing for their time is that the winners are going to be the ones that provide the most benefit, right? So it's sort of like, oh, this game is fun, but I also get ownership. So I think that's pretty big.
Ones that own land, the landowners, even like the medieval ages, now ownership of time. I think that's huge because, I remember I was in the Digital Asset Summit in New York last month, and this guy, he has a hedge fund, and I was talking to him. He was like, I want you to work with me, and I was like, "Oh, okay." He was like, what's your hourly wage? And I thought about it at first. I was like, what number should I tell him? But then I really thought about it. I was like, an hourly wage, a salary, that's just you renting out your time, but you're renting it out, but you can never buy it back. And it's like, so once, when I stopped working at Lowe's, all that time I spent working for like $12 an hour, it didn't compound to anything greater. It just,
Yeah,
it was just dead. And,
yeah,
and then, one of my philosophies in life is, you have to learn from the mistakes of yesterday to do what you need to do today to make tomorrow better. So, this idea of compounding time.
yeah.
So every day is an opportunity. So, ownership of time, that's huge.
Yeah, I love that. And like, if you think about your own, like, because the thing that I think people need to kind of get is that their time is like non-fungible, right? And their attention and their time, right? And it's sovereign, right? So they're the owners of it, right? And the other thing that's really interesting is it isn't refundable, right? So you can't go to anything or anyone and say, oh, I like that last 10 minutes back. Can you issue me a refund, right? It's like, no, that's gone, and I think it's super. What you said and what I'm kind of hearing from you that's important is that you shouldn't have regrets about it, right? But you should just absolutely kind of arrive at the present moment and then like try to make the best of where you are now, right? Because in a sense, like, the past is the past, right? So you spent it however you did, but like today is like a new day, right? I think that's kind of what I'm hearing.
Yeah, the mistakes you made yesterday, you can't sit down and get sad about them. All you can do is learn from them and, grow. Because, like you said, every day is a new day. It's a new opportunity to learn something new. I feel like the moment you stop learning in life is the moment you really stop living.
Yeah,
Because,
that's
like,
it.
oh, you go.
Yeah, no, that is amazing. So tell me a bit about kind of how you see a connection between sort of the metaverse and kind of blockchain technology. Like, how do you see this stuff? And what is it that you want the future to look like?
So I think, blockchain, one of the key attributes of it is it enables transparency. Is we're living in this virtual world. You can't touch it, can't smell it, but you want to be able, to see it, and I think that's what a blockchain enables is you can see what's going on what the other people in the same network are kind of doing. That transparency is key. You don't, much of the world we live in right now, operates behind closed doors. A
Oh,
lot of people don't really have decisions in what the future is going to be because they aren't in those rooms. They don't know what's going on. And quite frankly, a lot of people don't even know those rooms exist. Because
yeah,
one
yeah,
thing,
yeah. I love your mindset, right? Because recently there was a leak of something called the Pandora Papers, right? There was another leak previously called the Panama Papers, right? And these are all kind of like the where are the billionaires and the, all these kind of mega rich politicians, like where are they hiding their money, like offshore, and what are they doing? So like all of this kind of shady business, right? Like people are kind of getting a clue into it. They're getting to see the behaviors of some of these people, right? And obviously the thing that's so interesting about what you're describing is kind of this insistence or demand on transparency, right? So, the thing that's so cool is like you're talking about these shadowy rooms, right? And these where these decisions are made. And the thing that's so interesting is that in a way you're describing blockchain, you're describing, things like Bitcoin as kind of the room where it happens, right? And in a sense, it's a room where anyone can go in the door because anyone can get a key, right? So you can just get a key, go in the door, and now you're in the room. You're in the room where everything's happening, right? You're not locked out. That's super interesting.
No, exactly. I like the way you put that. One thing I've realized is screens, they are the biggest filter of all time. My phone is right here. I look at my phone, how am I supposed to know what's going on in the world if I'm just looking at my phone, a screen?
Ah,
People can relay because all you can ever see in life is what's right in front of your face.
yeah,
With
yeah.
screens, they can put anything right in front of your face
Oh man,
without any sources. And people just have a tendency to believe the first thing that they see.
wow. That's also an incredibly powerful insight, right? Which is like if you go back to the movie The Matrix, right? It's basically like people can be placed under control, right? Because they can be essentially taught to believe what they see, right? It's a sort of people say, "Oh, I believe it when I see it." And it's like, "Okay, I can make you see anything I want, right? I can use deep fake technology, like I can put anything, yeah, I can put any idea in your head, you can believe it." And it's like, okay, you should not believe your own eyes, right? Like that, it's no longer valid to say that you can kind of believe it when you see it, right? The thing that's interesting becomes, how do you figure out what to believe then?
Yeah. I mean, to me, you just have to approach everything with an open mind. You have to accept, one thing I've accepted is I don't know anything. Like, who am I? Like, I'm just a person just like you. I breathe the same. I eat cereal with a spoon. I drink my drinks out of a cup, you know? So, like, what's so special about me that I can know more than anyone else? I just approach everything with an open mind. I believe that, you can learn from anyone and everything. So, yeah, I think that is like just the biggest key is realizing that there's always something new to learn. And I think a very powerful thing is the ability to change your mind. People have very strong opinions nowadays, but I think it's a very powerful thing if you can say, I was wrong. I think that, and just like approaching every room and always listening and observing. I believe that we have one mouth, but two eyes and two ears for a reason.
I love this. One of the things in my investment that I look for is what I call uh, diamond head, two ears, right? And what I mean is that you want an entrepreneur whose head is like, how people talk in Bitcoin about diamond hands, people who don't sell, right? So someone with a diamond head can basically like smash their head through like a brick wall, So like that's a person who has like incredible toughness, but when I say two ears, right, it's sort of like you really need the person to also listen, right? You need the person to also be like, I'm going to take in new information, right? Because it's like you can be so tough, but if you're not actually taking in any new information, it's going to be hard for you. Like, like you may end up hitting your diamond head against the diamond wall and like, it sort of doesn't end up okay on either side, right? So in a sense, like, to me, this idea of like really having that kind of humility, also being able to embrace failure in the sense of looking at that as progressive, right? Looking at it as like, okay, that didn't work, so then you're like, but what do I know, right? It's like I'm curious. I'm a curious guy, right? So how do you pick yourself up if like something didn't work? Because it feels like that could be a slap in the face. A lot of people out there in this economy are traumatized, right? So they're feeling just really bad, right? So in a way, like how do you recover, right? Like how do you pick yourself up and how do you keep moving?
To me, I feel like it all starts with just being grateful to be alive. There's some people that don't get to wake up tomorrow. It's just a blessing to be able to breathe. And to me, I'm blessed. Like I've never starved in my life. And I've always had my basic needs taken care of. Once someone once told me, if everyone threw their problems on the table, someone else will pick up yours. And that just really like changed my perspective because it's like, all the problems I have in life, they're good. Like I'm grateful for them. So, if like something happens, like I remember I was in Miami this past summer. I went swimming in the beach and I came back and my phone was stolen.
Oh,
And a lot of
geez.
people, they need their phones. They're like, oh my God, my phone's stolen. All I could do was smile because I was just like, hey, at least I had a phone to be stolen. And then I just went and bought another one.
That's great. That's really good. I mean, it's because here's the thing that I think is basic about being alive, right? Which is that our brains are the result of like billions of years of survival, right? And so our brains are basically like this crazy engine that's constantly scanning for like threats, right? Because the thing that's crazy is like if you think about our ancestor, right, our ancestor was basically just completely like a nervous wreck, right? And they're scared of everything, right? Because they survived, right? Like they were the guy that like jumped out of the treehouse because they thought that they saw a tiger, right? Everybody laughing at that one, right? And then they broke their leg and then they jumped out of the treehouse again and everybody's laughing at them, right? And then like 20, 30 times later, they jump out of the treehouse, it's actually a tiger and the tiger eats everyone else, right? Like our ancestor is the guy that jumped out of the treehouse 50 times, broke his leg, right? Like that's our ancestor, right? So if you think about our ancestor, like he was scared, right? He was scared. He jumped his shadows, like something terrible, something bad happened. He was like freaked out, like those are the conditions that our brains evolved under, right? So it's no wonder that we just even walk down the street is an act of courage, right? Because you don't know what's behind the corner and your brain will tell you what's behind the corner, like your brain will tell you that there's a tiger there, like you're gonna be killed or so it's no surprise that people are traumatized. There's no surprise that people are terrified, that they're scared of anything, right? Because and bad things do happen, right? People do go outside and they get mugged or like some of my friends got mugged, and so like if that's real too, right? So we to me like this idea that we have to kind of recover from that, and we have to, obviously we have to be careful too, and try not to get traumatized, but like I don't think it's avoidable. So it's I think the thing that's interesting is how you kind of survive to keep going, and retain that sense of appreciation. That's hard. That's a hard thing to do. I think everybody goes through a lot of hard knocks. So I think that's something I've been able to learn about, fortunately. So tell me a bit more about kind of your views about the generational thesis. Like what do young people think about crypto, and how what do they think about future?
Well, so like I said, I had the blockchain club here, and my way of recruiting people is I just go outside on the biggest group of people, and ask them like, you guys, is this of any interest to you? And one thing I've kind of found is, a lot of people they look at me crazy, and some of my classes they think I'm stupid. I mean, it just makes me happy because it just lets me know I'm early. But a lot of people I found they don't even know really what the space is. I mean,
Yeah,
unless it's like Sheeb or Doge.
yeah,
But one of my theses is that I was explaining to you this last time. The world is like a very hierarchical structure. And, the same people that sell us health insurance sell us candy, but we don't even know it.
yeah,
That's the thing. And, that's very embedded in our society, the roots of our society, schools, they're supposed to be a place of learning, but it seems more and more than ever they're a place to make profit. So,
amazing.
there's all these problems embedded in the roots of our society that most people don't even know. I just kind of look at what's right in front of me. like I don't want to throw too much shade at my school, but we have a really big arts program here,
Yeah.
and it just so happens right down the street there's this art supplies store, and their prices are just crazy. It just seems
Mm,
almost too convenient that they're the only art store in the middle of a huge art campus,
wow.
and their prices are crazy. It just seems like too set up to me, like it was planned that way, you know? And then it's just like so many fundamental problems that are rooted in our society. And I think blockchain is going to disrupt that at the
Yeah.
ground level.
I think the thing that's important to understand about this kind of setup, right, is that in a way it's really spawns conspiratorial thinking. Like it spawns, and here's the thing that I want to say, right, which is it's really about insane efficiency of extraction. And what I mean by insane efficiency of extraction is right now there's like AI bots that are kind of, they're either working for you or they're working against you, but they're scraping all of your data and they're kind of like directing advertisement towards you. Everyone's using these AI bots, right, to kind of like extract maximum fees, right? And when you get a bill, like people are figuring out if they can bill you more, and still keep your business, so like it's sort of this, the economy sucks. Like it literally is sucking people's money out, and so the thing that's interesting is when people face this kind of like AI bot driven extractive economy, it makes them feel like there's something against them, that there's something trying to ruin them, and something trying to kind of take their life essence or their financial freedom, right? But in essence, it's kind of this decentralized, right? There's a lot of people trying to make a buck, right? And in a sense, like when you pull them all together, it's almost predatory, right? In the sense that like everybody just wants to get the buck that's in your pocket, and there's just a lot of people trying to grab it, so I think that kind of the creepiness of the efficiency of it causes people to think about like a conspiracy. Like if you look at something like Facebook and the way they target ads, it's super creepy, right? Like you're having a conversation about something, and the next day there's a Facebook ad showing you like, oh yeah, like you're talking to your friend about this thing. Here it is, right? That happened to me the other day. Um, my brother just got a job working on like genetically engineered pet foods, right? So you can make pet foods that are like plant based but have protein and nutrition, right? It's like Impossible Burger for pets, right? So he's a science researcher working on this, right? So next thing you know, there's like pet food ads in my Facebook feed, and so they're so I feel like this extractive and AI driven economy, it like really helps stimulate people's conspiracy thinking, right? Because it really it's reached the insane amount of efficiency, and their ability to reach into your pocket and take $1 is like, you better put both your hands on it, because they're gonna get it from you, right? And a lot of times they're gonna get it in a way that doesn't involve your consent, right? They're gonna get it from you even though you're like, I don't want to. They're gonna hit you with a phone bill and it's gonna be higher than you expected. Like they're just gonna get you, right? And the people that provide essential services are not even like, if it's so essential, then they'll just jack the price even more, right? Because they know you won't quit, right? I feel
Yeah.
that way about my internet provider, right? Which is that they just keep trying to jack up the price because they know that I'm not going to quit the internet. So like, I don't know, it's pretty bad. How are you? What are your thoughts about it?
Well, you made me think of something. Helium Network.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think that's a fascinating project because, like you were talking about the internet provider, right? They could just jack up the prices because they have a monopoly on it. But I was reading that, the Helium network, for those who don't know, it's kind of like a decentralized Wi-Fi at a very high level, and it's fairly new within the past decade. But I read that it's like the fastest growing network that ever existed in terms of like the network that it provides. And that was because it was decentralized and there was economics behind it to provide monetary incentives for people to uphold the network.
Yeah.
So I think, going off what you just said, like going into this metaverse, I think, the decentralized way is going to be, the path that most people take because like there's the transparency, but it's also, like there's the economic incentives. I think that's one of the beautiful things about crypto is, so much of the world we live in right now is enforced by consequences. If you don't do this or if you do this, there will be repercussions.
Yeah.
You will get in trouble. So people
Yeah.
kind of act out of fear. Well, with crypto,
Hmm.
it's incentives. Well, if you do this, you can make money. So people are just like, oh, I want to do this because this is in my best interest. But the beautiful thing is by acting in your own best interest, you're also acting in everyone else's best interest.
Yeah, I love your description, right? Because in a way, you're talking about again, you're talking about kind of a matrix. You're talking about instruments of control, and you're talking about human perception, right? You're talking about lifting the veil from people's eyes, right? Because like one thing you can do is you can go to any major city, or you can go anywhere, right? And you just start looking around and asking yourself, who owns this? Who owns that? Right? Like, who owns this building? Like, who owns all these cars? Who owns, just keep asking yourself, who owns the phone network, right? And the thing that's so interesting about something like the Helium network is like, you can answer that question in a pretty satisfying way, right? You can answer the question of like, I own this network, right? Now, I might not own the whole thing, but I actually understand that it is owned by people who are just like me, right? And so eventually, I think this kind of fractional ownership is going to dominate as a paradigm because it's exactly what I said earlier about play to earn games. It's like, why would you play a game that doesn't give you ownership, right? Because you're helping build this game up. You're making this game funner for other people. You're part of this network. Like, don't you deserve equity? Don't you deserve ownership? Don't you deserve like the idea that like people are just going to be zombies, consumers, right? That can be like controlled and you can extract the value from them. That's completely like that's really broken, right? So the feeling that like people should be included, they should become owners, they should like get what's good for them and what they deserve. I feel like that's the future. I like what you're describing. That's exciting. Tell me a bit more about kind of things that you're excited about, things that you're keeping track of. I know helium was one. Tell me more about sort of futuristic things that you're keeping an eye on.
So I'm really big into like DeFi. There's this cool project actually that I think you would really like. It's called DeFi Kingdoms. So it's like an NFT game, a play to earn game with DeFi incorporated in it. So it's on the Harmony network. It's basically like the native DEX for Harmony is literally built inside this game. It's called DeFi Kingdoms. And that's some alpha
That
for you guys out there. But I just I take like a kind of generalist approach. I just like learning about everything and anything and then kind of connecting the dots. So one thing I've been reading a lot about recently is financial history. Because
Tell me
the
more. Tell me what kind of like what have you learned in your study?
so in one of my classes, we're talking about bubbles. So the other day we were talking about the tulip mania that took place a couple hundred years ago. And people were just getting rich off of trading tulip leaves.
Ah,
There was like futures contracts, and there's these whole markets based off of tulip leaves. It kind of there's some parallels today because I think NFTs the fundamental, they're a great technology, but some of these like you hear stories of people like quitting their jobs so they just become an NFT trader. I think in retrospect, people will look back and be like, that they're just trading pictures on the internet for money. I think, that there's some parallels to that. And then also like how interest rates work, how like in the past, when central banks have started to raise interest rates and the flow of money starts to decrease, valuations start to not be as high and pretty as they once were because people can't discount flash cash flows
yeah.
uh as high of levels. What else have I been looking at? Uh I just like economics. So one of my teachers, his name's Jeffrey Lacker. He used to be the
Yeah.
president of the one of the regional Federal Reserve banks.
Cool.
And I just love picking his mind because he's so smart. I mean, he's pretty skeptical about crypto, but I always,
Yep.
kind of nag him about it, especially stable coins. I'm like, oh, the yields are higher on stable coins. He's always like, oh, there's no FDIC insurance. But, I like seeing how things are, related, how things can be connected, like how a world event going on over here is, I'm trying to think of some, nothing off the top of my head, but just always observing and looking what's right in front of my eyes, like how people act, especially in my school, seems like a lot of irrational behavior. So right now, it's Halloween weekend. I live on a college campus. So there, a lot of people have been partying recently. And I see these girls, they walk outside in like barely any clothes and it's freezing outside. Just doesn't make sense to me. So to me, I'm always like just learning about, I feel like I have to be learning. Like when I'm just standing there, it's just, I don't know, I feel anxious to learn more. So I just learning about everything in human behaviors and psychology and how markets work, because it's all connected at the end of the day.
That's really that is exciting, and I feel like to me you really represent the future. It's kind of why I wanted to bring you on the show, because I think that in a way, like you're kind of opening your eyes, you're kind of connecting dots, and in a way, like it's so easy to kind of play someone else's game, right? And the thing that's interesting is that like we're always playing other people's games, right? There's no like, so the question becomes though is which games do you choose to play, right? And so you want to figure out the games which where you can win, right? And you want to figure out which games, and you want to give your consent to the games that you think are the ones that are fair or the ones that will treat you better and the ones, so to me, like, that's something that where people haven't necessarily yet open their eyes, and I feel like that's something where we're in the last kind of gasp of this extractive economic control paradigm, so I feel like it's exciting. It's in the shadow of Facebook Meta, we're all kind of like building kind of a consensual, open, transparent, inclusive financial future, and I think that once people get a taste for it, I think there's no turning back. So, I think it's been really great. Any kind of thoughts, words of advice? I think of you as a time investor. Someone who has invested their time, and continues to, right? And I think in a way, the people who have time to invest are more like younger people, and I think I think that's why the future will be built by the Connor Rileys of the world.
Well, I like what you
Any,
said
yeah,
about, there's games to play. One thing I've kind of realized just by opening my eyes is, well, if you just play the games that no one else is playing, the games that people don't even know exist, it's a lot easier. It's more fun. So, one thing I've kind of realized being in this crypto world is, a lot of the older people, they don't really know much about this space.
yeah,
But they want to learn, it's primarily a young people driven space. But also, I'm a student, I like leveraging that. 'Cause one thing school kind of teaches people is you have to apply to jobs, make a resume, go through this whole process of interviews and things of like that nature. But we were talking about earlier, like when you said like who owns this building, who owns this car. At the end of the day, we're all just people, it's all just people making
that's right.
decisions.
That's
So
right.
behind that application process, there's someone, probably in HR who's going through that. And then, but they have a boss, their boss probably has a boss and that they have to listen to. Well, if you just go out and find these people, the people that are making like the ultimate decisions for the company, and you build a relationship with them, it opens a lot more doors. And, one thing I've kind of realized is being a student, people kind of think of you as harmless, you're kind of innocent, you're in this world to
Yeah,
learn more.
that's right.
I
That's
could
right.
kind of use that to my advantage. Like pulling the student card.
I love
Um,
it. No, I love it. I think you gotta play whatever is in your hand. If it's a bad hand, a good hand, like play whatever the cards are. And, because one of the things I did want to shout out is that like one of the biggest feelings in the world. Like I grew up in the Midwest, and there weren't very many Asian people there. and there's this kind of feeling that you can get from others, where there's this feeling of like, oh, you don't belong here, right? There's this feeling where, right, and then you can get scared and you can kind of leave, and the thing that I think is important, like when you look at something like crypto, right? There's a lot of technical jargon. There's a lot of kind of stuff people talk about things, and like you can get this vibe or feeling of like, oh, this is a weird place full of weird people. I don't belong here, like you just need to be patient, right? Because you do belong here. And one of the things that I want to tell people is that blockchain doesn't care what color your skin is, doesn't care, like, if you're male or female or non-gender conforming, identifying, like it doesn't care. It doesn't care. It's inclusive, right? It doesn't care if you live in the Philippines. It doesn't care. It doesn't care. Like it's going to treat you exactly the way that is treating others. And the blockchain applications have rules and they're all games, right? And some of the games are rigged, right? There are definitely games where, like, people can do this thing called rug pull, where they could take a DeFi and they could take the money out and everyone's a loser. That's a bad game. Don't play those. But like, if you get the feeling that you don't belong in a place, like, see if you can tolerate that, right? See if you can tolerate that feeling. See if you can stick it out for 5 more minutes there and see what happens. See if you can stick it out for, like, just stay and like stay with that feeling and be like, this is uncomfortable, right? And it's like, that's fine. It's okay
Yeah.
that it's uncomfortable. Like that's fine. Just stay to see if you can find out the truth, right? And you may find out like, oh yeah, this thing is bullshit, right? If you find that out, okay, then you can go, right? Like
Yeah.
get out as soon as you figure it out, get out. But like, you might find out that this is amazing, right? So you gotta stick it out. You gotta stay and look and pay attention, figure out what's real.
Yeah, I mean, comfort to me is the enemy of progress. When I first got into this space, I didn't know anything, but I just kept learning, and eventually all the terms, they started making sense. Like it took me forever to learn what an ERC20 token was. I kept hearing it. I was like, what is it? What is it?
Absolutely. I love that. And that's exactly the kind of discomfort, right? Because like it, the thing that's great about what you're describing is that you're able to sit there with that discomfort, right? But eventually you're like, people have said this to me enough times that I'm pretty sure I better figure out what it is. And I better spend the time to figure out what it is, and then you just kind of figure out what it is. And then you're like, oh, wow. Now I know something really important, right? Because like so many people talking about it, and so like, and then maybe somebody says something to you and you don't understand what it is, but nobody ever says that word to you ever again, right? Then you're like, oh, whatever. Like, I don't know what that is, but it's nobody seems to care about it, so it's fine, right? Part of my show, Miko Bits Show, is about that, is it's about, you can watch the show, you can hear people talk about blockchain, right? And you can just be a little uncomfortable because they're saying all these weird buzzwords, right? But like, if you just listen to the show for a while, you're going to be like, well, these guys are talking about ERC20 or whatever, right? So then you're like, you get comfortable, you get used to it because you get exposed to it, right? You get used to it and you're like, okay, that's obviously a thing. It's something I don't know what it is, but like that's fine, right? I'm gonna find out. Like you can't keep me from finding out, right? And if everybody seems to be saying that that's important, then I'm gonna look it up, and I'm not, and everyone should feel like they're not dumb. They should feel like, because it's so alienating, right? Our space can be really alienating. Our space can be like, oh, we're going to talk all this jargon, blah, blah. And people are going to be like, oh, I don't belong here. You do belong here, right? Like just stick it out and learn what you need to learn, So I think Connor's a great example. And, let's keep that party going. Well, good.
Yeah.
I think I gotta wrap up, but this has been a great show, and it's been a really my first Miko Bits live show. So thanks for being on it with me.
Thank you for having me, and thank you for everyone listening.
Appreciate it a lot.